Welcome to Photoactive, a podcast about photography and technology. I'm Kirk McElhearn.
And I'm Jeff Carlson.
You can find show notes, including any photos we discuss in this episode, at photoactive.co. That's photoactive.co. So we have a non-technical topic today. And if I can propose a title for the episode, it would be Process and Product. Because we're going to talk about photography in the sense that it doesn't matter how your photos end up.
Wait, what?
That the results are less important than the journey, so that the product is less important than the process. And this is inspired by an article that showed up in Apple News for me the other day. The joy of taking pictures no one else will ever see. Stop feeding the algorithm. It was from Digital Camera World. We'll put a link in the show notes. And it made me think that, go back 15 years, the only people who ever saw your photos were your close friends and family, or if you had a bunch of people around to show photos of a vacation, or your son or daughter brings home a potential significant other and you get out the album of baby photos. Or, that kind of thing. People didn't really look at photos that much. I mean, okay, if you had a wedding, you've got a photo album and you might look at that and show people, but there wasn't this, the world had not become a world of exhibitionists. And exhibitionists in the sense of people who put themselves on TikTok to show themselves doing dumb things, or to show how good looking they are, or to show them on top of or in front of some landmark where you can't see the whole line of people waiting to get the same photo, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Photos were they were very personal in the past, and all that's changed.
Yeah. Well, and I think you said 15 years, and that we probably need to back that up another 10 before that.
Well, I'm thinking before social media, although...
Okay, yeah, before social media.
Facebook came around in 2004, I believe, for the general public. So that's when people started posting photos online like that. Some other people may have posted photos on a website, but it wasn't a common thing. And maybe a professional photographer had a portfolio. But people didn't share photos the way they did once Facebook and Instagram came around. So let's say 20 years.
Yeah, okay, that sounds more likely. I mean, I'm thinking of Flickr as being one of the very first, photo sharing sites, but mostly that too was photographers who were sharing things. So I went out and took photos, and I'm going to put them up here, rather than what we see now, which is, look, here are just everyday things that I saw. This is the cup of coffee that I had. This is the place that I've been, like that kind of thing.
So Flickr was created in 2004 as well.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So that's really an inflection point that year.
Yeah. And by the way, I actually did share a photo of a coffee that I had this week. So I'm not going to try to make it sound like I'm like above all of this.
Yeah.
In fact, I mean, actually the opposite, because what this article inspired me to think about was just that idea of taking pictures for the sake of taking pictures, because I still look at Instagram, and I think that's because there are some people that I follow there, some accounts that I appreciate, but it's so much more work now, and it doesn't feel like
it's not fun.
There's so much that is ads. There's so much that is engagement bait, which is also like one of the reasons why I really like Glass. Like I still pay for Glass, and we've talked to the people from Glass a few times on this podcast, because that is very much more photographers who are sharing their work. That also is different.
Nevertheless, Glass is a fire hose, right? You look at your feed, it's picture after picture after picture after picture. And
it is.
While they're nicer pictures and there's no algorithm, you only see people you follow. I mean, you can look at a more general feed to find new photographers to follow. It's still a fire hose that prevents you from taking time to look at a picture.
Oh, hang on a second. I don't think it prevents you from taking time to look at a picture. It just gives you a better selection of pictures. Because you can still
But you
stop.
still want to look at the next one. You can stop, but you want to look at the next one because we've been trained to do that.
Look, I can stop anytime. This social media does not control me. Hang on a second. I got to go check my feed.
Yeah. Because I'm looking at my feed now and I'm going to show you it's got 3 photos, right? That are all look like a 4:3 and a 3:2 aspect ratio. So it shows 3 photos on my iPhone 16 Pro Max. So it's on a large display. And when I'm looking at one, I see 2 others. So I can tap one to isolate it.
Yeah.
But the feed itself is still, okay, here's a nice photo, but look at the one below it. That sort of thing. In fact, if you're listening, Tom and Stefan, maybe there should be an option for the feed is just like a single photo. Like when you're looking at TikTok, you see one video and you swipe and it switches to another one. Maybe the glass feed could have an option to just have one photo and you swipe to see the next one instead of this sort of endless scrolling fire hose feed.
I love that idea. What's interesting is I never thought of that because we're so used to having the endless scroll for so many different things.
So this brings up another thing, and I don't like using the H word, right? There are certain
HDR?
words. Hobby. I don't like using the word hobby. Photography is a hobby because to me, hobby has these negative connotations of women doing needlepoint, men making replicas of the Notre Dame Cathedral out of matchsticks, that kind of thing, or something pastime to pass your time that you're doing just to fill your time, and that's not what it is. This is a passion project to take photographs and to work with them and to edit them, etc. So I don't like the H word for anything like that. People discover this because I think what's important is this is a way of expressing creativity. When you first get a camera, forget about smartphones where everyone has a camera, but back in the day when you got a camera, you had to figure out how to use it, right? You knew when you took a bad picture, when you pointed at something and you got the picture back and it was dumb, and you slowly learned how to make pictures that were more interesting. And that's part of the creative process of learning how to make interesting pictures, which can be quicker with a smartphone because you can take as many pictures as you want. You don't have to pay for development, etc. The creative process unlocks something in our brains that is pleasing. It's a different kind of dopamine. It's not the dopamine you get from scrolling. It's a dopamine of satisfaction that you've done something that is nice. And the question is, does everyone need to see it? Because what you'll find is that most people who see it don't think it's very nice. Then you're going to think you're a crap photographer. Whereas if you just take your pictures and look at them and think, I like this picture.
Yeah. I actually want to get back to the dopamine a little bit later because I think that's a really interesting point. Or maybe now because I just brought it up. Just in that sense of the other thing that happens, and again, I'm guilty of this too, is you go out, you take a picture of something, maybe you caught a nice sunset, and this could be on a phone, on a regular camera, whatever, and you post that to social media, and you get people who are friends and family or maybe others who think, wow, that is a really great shot. And I know deep inside it is not a great shot. It is a perfectly okay shot, but it may have the elements that captured, like the reflection of a sunset in the bay, or some of those things that, like really good color saturation perhaps, that tug at our brains and our eyes and say, ooh, well, that's different than just some other snapshot. And so you feel that dopamine of, oh, you know what? Maybe this is a better picture than I thought it was because these 10 people think it's great.
Yeah.
And those 10 people may think it's great because they like you.
Right. Exactly.
And they think that
they're not judging
it's a good
the photo
picture, or they are happy that you were there for that experience, right?
Or they're being nice to you because they were mean to you last week. All
exactly.
sorts of reasons.
All of my enemies are deciding to be nice for 1 week. But
But
Go ahead.
before our last episode, we were talking about some photos that I took, and you asked me to send you one after I've edited it. And I'm going to send it to you now because I forgot to send it to you. And I was saying at the time, and I showed you the uncropped, unedited photo. I was saying at the time, it's not a really interesting photo, but it's something I like about it, right? And so we'll put this in the show notes, and maybe with some others. I don't know if you've gone through your photos to find a couple like this. It's a picture I took in the evening in front of my house. There's a wheat field across from my house, and so some of the wheat seeds blow over onto my front lawn. And here, this is wheat that was fully grown, mixed in with the grass, and you can't see that there's a drought and the grass is all brown. But it's golden hour, and the light is on the wheat. And the detail, when you look at it large, because this was with my Leica Q3 60 megapixels, the detail of the little, I don't know what you call the little whiskers on the wheat, is really fascinating. I would not say it's a good photo, but for me, looking at this photo now, this reminds me of the experience I had when I saw this, and I went inside to get my camera to capture it. If you remember, in the previous episode, we were talking about I went outside and there was some water dripping off a rose bush, and I went to get my camera. This was a similar thing, not raining this day. It's like, ooh, okay, I want to capture this. And whether anyone else thinks it's nice, it doesn't matter, because for me, it's reminding me of that subtle feeling I had looking at it, saying, this is a moment of beauty.
Mm-hmm. Well, and this is a moment of beauty, and I know exactly what you mean. There's that, it feels like a little tickle in the back of my head that sort of activates a different way of looking at something. It's like, oh, we're in photography mode now. I think I've used that in the past, and it's kind of a dumb term, but it's that aspect of something that I'm looking at in a new way, and I want to capture it. And that, I think, is an even better dopamine response, if it is even dopamine, but it's a more satisfactory response to making something. Like you're creating something, you're not just looking at something or having someone say, hey, this is a good picture, because you experienced that. And I think that's one of the reasons why I like doing landscape photography, and I don't feel like I do enough of it. But so much of landscape photography is you are getting out and doing it. Like, yes, you can come back with a lot of great pictures, or maybe you get skunked and the weather's bad and you don't get any good pictures, or you're forced to look for something else because the sky went crappy and there's just no good light, but maybe there's some really good macro opportunities nearby, that sort of thing. But you're out there, you're experiencing it, you're problem solving in real time, which I think a lot of people don't really give enough credit for in photography, that so much of photography is problem solving. Not only figuring out what exposure I should be at, which aperture I'm using, how much depth of field should I expose, like all of that kind of stuff, but it's also where can I make a composition that's interesting? Everything in front of me looks really boring, but something here has caught my eye and I don't know what it is. And so you're exploring. It's like all of that kind of exploration, visualization, looking at light and shadow, like all those things kind of bombard you in a great way, which
it's the process.
It is the process.
And the process puts you into a flow state, which shuts everything else out around you as long as you're doing it.
Yes. And there's not a process of looking through Instagram other than I really should stop this and get up and go make a cup of coffee or something like that.
One more. I'm going to scroll one more. No, two more, three more. And then, it's 15 minutes later and you've forgotten.
I used to do that. Here we go. Mark my age. I used to do that watching MTV. Do you remember MTV?
Sure.
Music television? Yeah.
I remember when MTV first started.
Yes.
That's how old I am.
Same here.
No, you're not that old.
I am that old.
3 years old?
I wasn't 3 years old, but thank you for thinking that I'm a young poet. I would watch MTV in high school, and because, dear listener, I was a big nerd. I know that's going to come as a big shock, but on the weekends, I would be up late, and basically, I would watch MTV and think to myself, all right, the next video, if that's good, I'll watch it. And then if I get to a bad video or a boring video, then I'll go to bed. Sometimes you went to bed right away. Sometimes it's 2:30 in the morning and you're questioning your life choices. But having that process, getting back to photography, having that active participation of photography, I think some people just sort of skim over that because they think I need to just point my camera and capture something, which smartphones are really good at doing. There's a whole lot of process that gets handled for you with a smartphone.
Trillions of operations per second.
Trillion. You know what? I'm looking forward to September because I think we're going to see the best cameras that have ever been in an iPhone.
It's going to be the best iPhone ever. Sorry,
this is a long-running joke.
Yeah.
It's going to be the best iPhone ever. But being able to work through it is really kind of this is going to sound cheesy, but it's kind of a gift because you are forced to think in photography. And as much as photography is going and looking at images, looking at like all the photography books that you have, like that is also kind of a process. But on the front side of that is, how am I going to make something? I'm not just capturing something, I am making something, even if it's something that you're capturing really quickly. Like there was prep involved, there was thinking, there were settings, there was all of that. And I don't want to sound defeatist, but it just seems like that gets lost so often because there's such a flood of images that we get exposed to.
I think also, since we can take so many photos, we expect a percentage of them to be good or great photos. And when you had a roll of 36, if you had one or two that were good, you were happy, right? If you were photographing, no, I'm not talking about snapshots or family photos. I'm talking about photographing, in air quotes, art photography. You can just keep shooting on your phone until you run out of storage space. And the number of keepers, as some people like to say, is you've got many more opportunities to catch something that's interesting. Like you could take 50 photos of the same thing from slightly different angles without worrying about burning through rolls of film. And this gives you more opportunities. However, having too much choice is also a problem. And using choice as a crutch, using 50 photos as a crutch instead of taking the time to compose one or two or three is also a problem. It means that you're trying to go through the process too quickly instead of doing the whole thing as you should from, all the things you're talking about, the problem solving. And I think that's a really good term. Process, product, and problem solving should be the title of the episode, because I think that the problem solving is probably the key to all of this and the key to any creative activity. I'd like to compare this to cooking. I know you like to cook. I like to cook a lot too. I bought a blender last week. I haven't had a blender in decades. And this morning I made some gazpacho. Pretty simple recipe: tomatoes, cucumber, onion, garlic, a little bit of vinegar, and a little bit of olive oil. It wasn't great. Too much onion. But the process of making it, for me, cooking, I don't mind when I fail when I cook because it's a learning experience. I don't know if I'll make gazpacho again. Last year, in order to prove I could, I made both ketchup and mustard at home, and neither of them were worth the many hours it took to make them compared to what you buy in a supermarket. But the process of making the gazpacho is interesting enough that, okay, the product is a gazpacho, which I ate for lunch, which wasn't great, and I'll maybe eat some tomorrow for lunch, and it won't be great, and that's it. But it's the process that's more interesting than the results. Over the weekend, I made a quiche. It was not my best quiche, but it was pretty good. When I make a quiche, it's generally quite good. And then it's gone, right? Mm-hmm. So any kind of thing that you make like that, it's the process that's important. It's not eating the quiche that's important.
Well, that's also another example of a flow state too, because when you're cooking, I'll typically have some music on, or I'll be listening to a podcast. Like there's other stuff going on, but it's mostly focused on ingredients and preparation and following the recipe. And so that is also a focused flow state, because I'm not thinking about work. I'm not thinking about all the 100 other things that could distract my mind. And so even though sometimes we'll be cooking something that might be either super easy or more complicated with lots of ingredients, it's that process of just unplugging in a way to be able to do something in a focused way. So cooking, photography, art, that kind of thing.
And for my gazpacho, it involved singing along to China Cat Sunflower and I Know You Rider.
See, there you go.
From the 5/15/70 Grateful Dead show at the Fillmore East. But see, that's part of the mood, isn't it? The mood of music. When I listen to a podcast or an audiobook when I'm cooking, it's too serious, and I can't be playful in the cooking, right? I got to pay attention. But when I'm listening to like a Grateful Dead concert or some other music, it opens up more opportunities, I would say.
Yeah. Another thing that I want to touch on while we're talking about this, because actually what I thought of first when you sent me that article was not so much the social media aspect of it, but that what are you shooting aspect of it. When you're shooting things for yourself. And I think some of that is because I do a mix of photography for myself. I do a mix of photography, like I do some paid photography, and it's been interesting.
And you also do photography for articles.
And I do photography for articles too.
Yeah.
So there are different disciplines of the photography that I do. And part of me taking this full-time job at CNET, where I am mostly writing, my photography has really been scaled way back in terms of just me going out and taking pictures. And I can feel that. I mean, before I was much more focused on photography because we have this podcast. I would write about photography for DP Review and things like that. And so now that I'm not really putting myself in that space, I'm realizing that I need to put myself in that space, if that makes sense. So it wasn't something that I was just doing all the time and thinking about all the time. Now I need to be more deliberate about going out and making photos. And that has been an interesting change because I'm back to asking, well, what do I want to go take pictures of? Not I need a sunset and I need a close-up picture and I need to test whether this camera has a good dynamic range, like all that. Like, what do I want to go take pictures of?
Yeah.
And honestly, I've been kind of stumped on that.
Well, our last episode was about macro photography as an idea for things you can take pictures of. Just when you're in your house, you see something interesting, you get your camera and say, how can I make an interesting photo of this tiny little thing without all of the context around it?
Yeah. And that's great as a like really close by thing. But it also makes me wonder, well, okay, as an example, I've been downtown Seattle a couple of times for various reasons. And so Pike Place Market is super touristy area, but it can be really great for street photography and that sort of thing. And there have been a few times when I've been down there or somewhere similar. There's a Sunday market in my neighborhood of Ballard that's great. And I've taken my camera thinking, well, this would be a good opportunity to see, people and fruit stands and like all the textures that you get from something like that. And I just haven't really taken any pictures and just trying to figure out what do I want to take photos of. And I think it's kind of stumping me. It's not that I have things that are not available to me. It's what do I want to take pictures?
You need the subjects to come out and grab you, that when you see something, it says, this needs to be captured. And that's the wheat in that photo.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing. I just walked out. I saw this. I said, this needs to be captured. That's the kind of thing. You need to be receptive to that. Mm-hmm. And it's true that for you, it's hard when you're doing all these photos for your work in one way or another. It's hard to, there's a term in Zen called beginner's mind, that the idea is that you should have beginner's mind all the time, where in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. You need to be beginner's mind, thinking of all the things around you. Everything around me is photographable. It's just to decide, as I like to say, where you put the four corners of the frame. So you need to get your brain into that photoreceptive mode to start looking at things and think like that. You need to have moments when you go out and saying, I'm in photo mode. And I'm not going to decide what I want to photograph. I'm going to just photograph whatever I come across that looks photographable.
That is an excellent distinction. It's not just that I went out with a camera. I brought a camera as a just in case, but I never got into that mental mode of, okay, I'm going to look for some photos. I was more focused on, hey, it's a nice day, and if I see something, I will take a picture of it.
Right.
And because I wasn't really thinking in a photographic way, I never really took any pictures. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Hey, you're smart. You know this stuff.
I think it's more that I've reflected on this from not just the technical point of view, from the artistic point of view, that I look at photography as both a craft and an art. And that allows me to think of things differently. Instead of thinking, oh, I have to get the depth of field of this just right, and I have to expose for the highlights and make sure the histogram looks good and all that. I don't really think like that. I'm not entirely f8 and B there. I generally keep my Leica at f5.6. I don't care about the blurry background stuff because I think that's a bit of a gimmick. And I like to just walk around and think, wait till something is there and just reaches out to me and says, photograph me, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And being open for that.
Right.
Which is huge. Yeah.
Do we want to do snapshots this week?
We could. I have a possible snapshot for something that arrived today that I haven't used.
Well, how about I start talking about a movie that I watched. I talked to you before we started recording. A 2024 film of The Count of Monte Cristo. It's a French film, and it's about 3 hours long, and it's the most popular French film for many years. I was explaining to Jeff, in France, they don't count box office revenue like the U.S. does. They count the number of people who go to see a film in the theaters. And this had over 9 million people going to see it. In a period when people don't go to movie theaters as often, for a 3-hour film based on a 19th century novel, which, I mean, there have been 100 versions of it on film and TV, so people more or less know the theme. But that's quite a feat. And it's the same directors did a 2-part movie of The Three Musketeers the year before, and apparently they're planning to do more along that line. It's a 1,500-page novel, so they obviously had to cut a lot out, and they created some characters and they removed a bunch of others. It's one of my favorite novels. But it's a really enjoyable movie. It's a superhero movie without superheroes, right? Interestingly, if you look at the genesis of the superhero, if you think of Batman as the superhero, not Superman, not the alien, but Batman was greatly influenced by the Shadow. Do you remember the Shadow?
Yeah.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The Shadow does. Lamont Cranston, he had learned these secret art in Tibet and stuff like that. Well, the Shadow's influenced by the Count of Monte Cristo, who, after being thrown in prison, escaping, he becomes this guy with all these powers, not actual powers, but skills. And you see him as he's getting revenge on a bunch of people. And it's an enjoyable 3 hours. So Count of Monte Cristo, you can get it probably on the iTunes store. Definitely worth watching. Jeff, what did you just get today that you don't know if it's worth talking about as a snapshot?
Well, it is going to be worth talking about it because I have it in my hand. And actually, it is kind of a camera thing, but in an odd way. I'm going to hold it up for you.
That looks like a cable. It looks like a USB-C. No, it looks like a microphone.
It does look like a microphone. It
looks like that thing that the doctor sticks down your throat to see if you have an ulcer. Is that what it is?
It's kind of like that. So this is a little snake camera, because
snake camera.
There is
endoscopy is what they call it.
Endoscopy. This is a intelligent visual industrial endoscope. Endoscope. And basically, we had a scare, or having a scare, that there might be a pipe broken in my house in a place that could be under like the wood floors in the living room. So not something that you can see easily or get to easily without tearing things apart. And as part of troubleshooting, I thought, well, it would be great if I could just have like one of those little snaky cameras and just follow the pipe where the break seems to be and just see. And then like in the past, I've thought about that. And you have people who they put these down sewers to check those kind of things out. And of course, I went on Amazon and I was like, what would it cost for something like that? Because
I'm going to guess it cost about $16.
$28.
Okay.
So not too bad. There may have been some $16 ones. This one seemed like a good
because it's basically fiber optics with a lens, right? It's not like a fancy lens of any kind.
No, it's not fancy at any kind. It has some LEDs at the end, so you get some light.
Right.
This one actually has like a little tiny side camera in addition to a front camera, so you can sort of like take a look more. And this just plugs into your phone. Like some of them have like a dedicated screen and a scope, and you can pay more for that. And of course, the professional ones will be $300,
like the
$200,
ones the doctors
$500.
use.
Yeah. But I figured, like for $28, even if it's only semi working, even if it only works partially well, it's going to be enough to tell me whether or not there's water dripping from a pipe. So,
and not knowing that could cost you a lot more.
It could cost a lot more. So before I, start trying to figure out, okay, do I need to get an expert who can take up the wood flooring without just taking a chainsaw to it, which is what a plumber would probably do, and calling a plumber and dealing with maybe, house insurance, household insurance, and all of that kind of stuff. Maybe I just spend $28 and take a look for myself. So
you just got this and you haven't used it yet.
Exactly.
So next episode, you'll have to take some screenshots and tell us what the results were.
Yeah, possibly. So far, the spot has not produced any more water, and so I have a feeling that this is a false alarm and something got spilled and we didn't realize it, but we'll see. I would much rather do this and find out than wait to see if the wood floor buckles, right?
Yep. Okay. I like that idea. Until next time, Jeff, take care.
Until next time.
Take some photos.
Oh, okay.
Thanks for listening to Photoactive. You can find show notes, including any photos we discuss in this episode, at photoactive.co. That's photoactive.co. We couldn't afford the M. You can join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/photoactivecast. That's photoactivecast in one word. You can subscribe to Photoactive in your favorite podcast app or on Apple Podcasts. See the links on our website. And think about leaving us a rating or review in iTunes or in your podcast.